And welcome back. We have been joined on set by the Commissioner of Police, none other than Chester Williams, for our first conversation this morning, where we'll be talking about law enforcement and, of course, citizen security on March 6th. Good morning,
Good morning, Compal.
Good morning, buenos dias, Binafi.
Yes,
buenos
yes,
dias,
yes.
buenos
Guten
dias.
Morgen, and all of these other, expressions for good morning. How's it going?
Well, I must say, been pretty busy, but we've been able to manage, thanks to the support that we continue to get from the people of Belize, as well as the government itself, in trying to see what can be done to make the police department better. So all in all, I think that we're doing well. When we look at our weekend, I must say the weekend was a very disappointing one to some extent. These domestic or social style killings are really a plague. Of the murders we have had so far this year, 80% are either domestic or social setting. Where friends killing friends or family killing family. And where we have those types of crime, it's extremely difficult for the police to prevent. Let me say one time, because I know it is going to hit the media very shortly. We had an incident in Corozal where a young American fella was accused of killing his wife. He was eventually intercepted by the police at a traffic accident scene in Corozal and taken into custody. This morning the police went to clean a cell. He was in a cell block, alive and well, and the police left to retrieve the prisoner food and returned about 10 minutes later. And upon return, they found him hanging in the cell by his pants, with his pants. So he took off his long pants that he was wearing and hung himself. So he is now deceased. Very unfortunate situation. I know that some might want to say the police could have done more, but the police would normally do cell block checks like every half an hour. And if they had just cleaned the cell and 10 minutes return with food to feed the man, I will not be able to see where the police would have faltered in that situation. So it's an unfortunate situation, but again, we have to deal with that.
I think it's part of the standard operating procedures, if I could describe it as such, where when police officers take persons into custody, they are relieved of certain items that would be deemed dangerous to themselves, to their person, right? So, for instance, your belt, your shoelace, any object that you would be able to use to cause harm to yourself is you're relieved of. But you wouldn't think of saying, okay, well, take off your shirt or take off your pants. So
that would go to the extreme and would also be a violation of human rights. So we would not go to the extreme of telling a person you have to stay nude in the cell block. We can't do that now. And especially in a case like his, he was not displaying signs of suicide. So
no ideation of any sort.
We're not expecting that to happen. So,
So you have your work cut out for you, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of what transpired over the past 3 days. You have road traffic accidents, you have domestic issues, you have murders taking place.
Yeah, the traffic accidents, Isani, is
out of control.
Yeah, we tried. We're trying with DOT, and there's a lot that we're doing. If you travel the highways, you'll see a number of checkpoints and highway patrols. But these motorists, they just monitor where the checkpoints and the highway patrols are and just do what they need to do. And we're finding again that these motorcycles are really the issue. There was one yesterday in Ladyville. Motorcycle. There was one down south. 3 persons on one motorcycle. It's just ridiculous. I don't know what else to do. We are trying as best as we can to do some educational campaign as it relates to the road safety. And even as much as we're doing that, we're still seeing that these motorcycle riders are not complying. And that is the main issue. And
do you believe that perhaps there should be more stringent penalties for these infractions? Because I get it. I mean, there's only so much awareness campaigns that we'll be able to run, right? But ultimately, it falls on either the pedestrian, the cyclist, or the motorist, anyone using those carriageways. Ultimately, that responsibility falls on you, how you're doing so and what laws you're abiding by.
Again, it is so true, Isani, and that is something we're currently contemplating. I myself, I was driving Friday, and a vehicle was coming in the opposite direction. So I moved to the right to allow the vehicle to overtake. And as I was moving to the right, I heard a beep, motorcycle right.
Oh my gosh.
If I had gone a little bit more, I would have knocked him clean off his life.
Yeah, that's something that I've observed.
It's just ridiculous, you know. Like they don't have no regards to the rules of the road.
Yeah.
You do not overtake a vehicle on the right.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so ridiculous, man. Yeah. And we're trying as best as we can with Department of Transport, but they're just not getting it. So again, to implement more stringent penalties, I think would be one way to go. It might serve as a form of deterrent to them, and hopefully that might help.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we're expecting as well is an increase in police presence as it relates to checkpoints on election day as well, because there will be a lot of moving parts. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, in terms of the elections coming up, as you know by law, the chief elections officer is the one who has control of elections and how elections are to be managed. The police, on the other hand, our responsibility is to ensure that during the election process, that law and order is maintained. And so this time around, we're not having a general election, just municipal election. So the focus is going to be in the urban areas. And with that, we have put in place our operational orders. We have had meetings with the chief elections officer who briefed the police senior command in terms of what she expects of the police on election day. We have two important locations when elections are held. One, we have the polling stations. At the polling stations, the presiding officer is the person who is in charge. And we have the counting stations. And at the counting station, the returning officer is in charge. So at the polling station, the police is going to take instructions from the presiding officer or the returning officer, and at the counting station from the returning officer. So again, there are certain basic laws that govern election, like we have, you cannot campaign within the 100 yards line. You cannot wear red or blue within that that area. But again, we have seen over the years with elections that we have not really enforced that color issue. And again, for the simple fact that all the political parties are doing it, and to enforce it is going to create more work and more problem for us. So we have just left that to happen. But we'll do as much as we can to prevent the candidates or their agents from coming into those 100 yards line to campaign or whatever, try to reach out to voters to tell them what to vote for them. To that extent, we would normally go. Now, when it comes to the whole issue of the highways or the traffic regulations, we, of course, like in the different municipalities, we're going to ensure that there is a free flow of traffic within the area where the elections, the polling stations are going to be. Again, we don't want to have a situation where the traffic is clogged. Now, there may be certain areas where they might block off the streets due to the fact that the area might be too congested. So there might be a need to block off certain areas. But in those areas where we have polling stations along any major road, then we will ensure that we coordinate traffic properly to be able to allow traffic to flow while the votings are taking place. And likewise, on the highways, we're going to still maintain the highway patrols and checkpoints. We know that there are going to be a number of persons who may reside outside of the urban areas who may want to come into the city to vote. And so they might be on the highway racing, try to meet time to vote, or try to vote and go back. So again, to ensure that we have proper traffic control on the highways will also be important on that day.
I think especially since it's not an official holiday, you know, individuals are trying to make their vote and rush back to work in time.
The employer will give you time to go and vote and you have to come back. So there's going to be that rush. So we need to ensure that we have proper control for the traffic as well.
What are your thoughts on what's been taking place in terms of vandalism? Because perhaps in certain areas, the fact that, you know, you have bad actors who would spray paint or tear down signs or whatever, it creates a situation where on elections day, perhaps some of these very same people are going to meet each other, and it could create a situation.
And you know that when on election day, no political sign is allowed within the 100 yards line as well. So most of those signs that are up, that are within the vicinity of those polling stations will have to be taken down Tuesday night. So that come Wednesday morning, they are not there. But to answer your question, Isani, it's very, very ridiculous to see the things that politicians do. I've always said, you know, sign, don't vote. I remember clearly in 2007, I think, or 2008, when a young man tried to cut me with a power saw, with a chainsaw, because they want to take down a sign. Again, why people go to the extent that they would normally go with these sign issues. In Cayo, it is so ridiculous, you know, and I just can't wait for Wednesday to come so that this madness can be over. Because every day my phone is ringing off the hooks because people are complaining that their sign is being taken down, their sign is damaged. There's nothing I can do. I cannot pay attention to signs. I have bigger things to deal with, you know, but I wish that
they do though, because for some reason they figure that the signage is what's going to prompt people to vote a certain kind of way. Right?
I don't, honestly, maybe, I don't know, but for me, a sign does not sway me in either direction. And I think that for the most part, over a month ago, Belizeans don't know who they will vote for. Right? So I don't see the need for us to be damaging each other's sign. I think that political parties should learn to work together and speak to their supporters, not to respect the signs of the other opposing party.
I think one of the questions that I would like to ask you, seeing as though you're here with us, is the concern that you do have rival gangs who operate within certain areas, and then you have polling stations in the mix of it all. And it's a concern that has been raised by former era Representative Boots Martinez for Port Loyola. And perhaps it's a very live concern in terms of having these young men within proximity of each other, knowing that they're from rival groups.
The truth is, Isani, well, I'm not going to dismiss the concern of Mr. Martinez. It can be a legitimate one. But the truth be told, all over Belize City, almost every polling station we have, there are rivaling gangs voting at those polling stations. And in some instances, they vote at the same polling station. In this one particular instance that Mr. Martinez is highlighting, they're going to be voting at two separate polling stations. The only difference is that these polling stations are a bit close in proximity.
Next door to each other.
Next door to each other. And the police, we have a responsibility of ensuring that law and order is maintained on election day. And we do understand the dynamics of that particular area. So certainly there's going to be more police presence on Southside Belize City per se. Not just that particular area, but Southside Belize City is a concern for us, because there is where we have most of the polling stations where we see rivaling gangs going to vote at the same polling station. Look, for example, in the St. Martin's area, the polling station there, you have the BLC, you have the PIV going to vote at that polling station, you know? And then sometimes you also have the 123rd who goes to the same polling station. So it is not nothing new per se. And so, again, we're going to be prepared to make sure that we do what needs to be done to be able to prevent any gang feud or gang rivalry at those polling stations.
With the death of Troy Hyde, Compal, do you suspect that there will be any form of rivalry? Sorry, any form of activities taking place on election day?
We don't. Let me not say we don't foresee that, because we do anticipate that there is going to be some form of retaliation for Troy Hyde's death. The question is when. But again, we are going to do what we can to ensure that on election day, that things run as smoothly as it possibly can. Belize have had a history of having calm and peaceful elections, and we want to make sure that this year is going to be no different.
I wanna use that opportunity that you mentioned right there to segue really quickly to regional news that we reported on last week, and that has to do with the death of two mayoral candidates in Mexico. And this was just on the heels of them beginning their official campaign last week, Friday. Now, it's said that it had to do with gang members in Mexico, but I wanted to know, have you heard of that? And if so, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, we look at our neighboring country, Mexico, and Mexico has a serious issue with the cartels. And the truth is that cartels do run certain part of Mexico. And when they see something happening that they don't like or they think is going to be used against them or come at them, they try to eliminate it. There was a certain part of Mexico where the chief of police, nobody wants to be the chief. Every chief who is appointed is killed. Within weeks or months of his or her appointment, they are killed. So it is a thing in Mexico. So that is not new per se. We can also look at what happened in Ecuador, right? When the president came out and said that they're going to go hard at the cartels and that, then we begin to see a whole pile of civil unrest taking place. Because the cartels are very determined when they want to take control. And if the government is not strong enough to make sure that they create that barrier to prevent them from taking control, then they're going to take control.
Wow.
But fortunately, for us here in Belize, we're not there yet.
No.
Yeah.
And I hope we won't get there.
Yeah, we're hoping that we don't get to that point. And so everything rests not only with us as citizens, but also with the police department or the security apparatus, if you're looking at it broadly, that we don't get to that point where civil unrest is the order of the day.
Yeah.
Well, I think what the public would want to know at this time, Kampal, is the key areas that we can expect police presence as it relates to the municipal elections. We do know that we're expecting police presence here in Belize City, but across the country, that will also be the case as well. Do you believe that you have enough manpower to present police officers all across the country?
There's never enough manpower, but go ahead.
And that's one of the things that sometimes Belizeans don't appreciate.
Yeah.
On election day, police have to work overtime. Overtime without pay. Officers will have to come and work the polling stations. And when polling stations close, they have to move to work the counting stations.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the counting stations remain until 12 or sometime the next day.
Yeah. Yep.
San Ignacio, Belize City, right? Those are
notorious
the
for going
yes,
way
so
over
long.
time. Yeah.
And in San Ignacio, when they don't count, they still want another recount, right?
Make sure.
So sometimes it stays till the next day morning at 6.
Yeah.
So the same police officers will have to make sure that they come to work Wednesday morning prepared for a 24-hour shift.
But it's a thankless job for you guys because while you're there to ensure that we are safe as voters, we take it for granted the work that you're actually doing. And that I think that's the thing about policing and law enforcement on a whole, is because you're there in the night to make sure that the day is perfectly fine for us the following morning. But at the same time, we don't give it much thought that you're going above and beyond.
The officers who are going to work election will fall in at 4 a.m. Wednesday morning.
Wow.
Right? So if they live in Corozal or Orange Walk, they have to be up from like around 1, 2 to make it here. And they will have to work right around and perhaps the next day morning 6. Right? So it's rough. But again, the type of people that we are, we do it without complaining. The officers still look forward to coming to work, make sure that they're out there and do what needs to be done to make the people safe. And that's what makes police officers very
Is there any, like, forgive my description of it, perhaps like a preparatory meeting that you guys have?
Yes, we have briefings across the country. The commanders are tasked to do briefing with their personnel. Mr. Greenwich, who would normally manage operations, would normally speak with commanders and go down into different areas and make sure that everything is okay. Then we prepare a national election operational orders. That comes to me. I go straight, vet it, make sure everything is in place, and then I approve that, and then the briefing is done based on that. So yes, we do that. We also would have meetings with the different political parties to make sure that on election day we're on the same page, that we don't have any issue between the parties arguing about who must be where and these sort of things. Because I know they always try to fight for strategic position around the polling station. So we try as best as we can to work with them to alleviate those issues come election day. And again, to answer your question, Sabrina, not Sabrina, Miss April, we also look at the not just to make sure we have police presence within the municipalities, but also in the rural areas, because we know that issues on the rural area can spew right into the urban areas on election day. So we have to do as best as we can, likewise, to not neglect the rural areas. And again, if we look at our crime trend this year, over 85% of our murders so far are in the rural areas. So we cannot take our concentration off the rural areas. So we're going to police those as well.
I'm glad that you've mentioned that. Perhaps we could digress just for a tidbit to address that very issue. When you look at crime and violence as of January 1st, 2024, the trend is that it would seem as if though murders have minimized, in a sense, in Belize City primarily, but you have all of these out-district killings where every week, every so often, something in Corozal, something in the rural areas of Belize District, so on and so forth. How are you guys responding to this? Because it would seem as though it's a phenomenon, if I could describe it as such. We don't used to crime and violence being a Belize City thing, so to speak, but now it's moving away from Belize City. How are you guys able to respond?
We are doing what we can to respond through different operational strategies. But again, like I said earlier, most of these killings are in the domestic setting or social setting. You and your friend drinking. Or not just start arguing, you kill a friend. Husband and wife at home, something happened, one kill the next one. How can the police prevent those? We can't tell people, I cannot tell you don't go to your friend's house and drink. We can't tell a husband and wife in your home, or they can't live together or whatever. And so it is extremely difficult. The type of murders that we're having now, those that are preventable, we're doing a very good job at preventing them. Like you rightly said, in Belize City, we have seen a drastic decline in the amount of murders so far this year. But rural Belize is killing us. Ladyville area, it's terrible. But what I'm doing now is that we are working on implementing a road policing unit. And that unit will be responsible to go into the rural areas, particularly those big villages, like we have Ladyville, we have Buena Vista, or Bella Vista in PG.
South,
Another hot area where alcohol is a serious issue. And we want them to be able to go in and do operations, search houses, go after these liquor establishments and these sort of things. So hopefully that is going to help. But at the end of the day, these people who are doing these killings are persons who regard as reasonable people. They're not the gang people, you know? And so we ask people to always try to allow cooler heads to prevail. Don't get too hype and too hot over an issue that you could eventually resolve through just speaking with each other. And that's one of the issues we're having.
With this observation being made, Kampal, about the crimes taking place, the murders taking place, being associated with domestic matters and familial matters, is it something that we will expect we will see the Belize Police Department amping up their partnership with these social organizations?
Yes, of course. Through LIU, we have all those organizations that are part of what we do. The only thing is that so far we have been focusing on Belize City. So 2023 was a focus on Belize City, and we have said that we were going to see how we can expand what is being done across the country. So yes, we're going to be looking to see what we can do to take what is being done in Belize City outside of Belize City to be able to help to alleviate some of the issues that we're having outside of Belize City.
I want to take the conversation out in the region again, Compal, simply because I saw in the news last night a report from the Associated Press speaking about the developments in Haiti as it relates to the gang situation and them invading their prison.
The prison being...
Yes. And the reason I bring this up is because I know that we have hopefully some of our officers here that were interested in going out and supporting Haiti. What were your thoughts on that? And do you think that the development there in Haiti may shift the minds of our officers that were interested in leaving?
Well, I listened to the news as well in respect to Haiti. And I think they said that the Prime Minister is currently in Kenya to try and secure the support of Kenya, to be the lead in the external security forces that are going to be deployed to Haiti. So I believe that once the Prime Minister is able to secure the support from Kenya, then we're going to look within the CARICOM region to see what can be done to deploy security forces to Haiti. Now, from a Belize standpoint, it is within the prerogative of the Prime Minister to decide if or not police will be going to Haiti. I have been asked the question as to what are my thoughts of police officers going to Haiti. And my response is that we are already short of police in Belize. So to send police in Haiti is going to add to our shortness in Belize. But at the end of the day, we have to understand what Haiti is going through. And we must also understand our position, where we stand. We cannot be selfish to say that we're not going to send nobody because we don't know if or when we might require external assistance from our CARICOM brothers. And we won't want that if that time should come and we call upon them, they say to us, oh, when we needed you, are not there for us. Why must we be there for you? So we cannot be selfish about it. We have to be mindful that, you know, it might be Haiti today, it might be us another time. So I would support, as much as we're short, I would support officers going to Haiti.
Here's my perspective on this thing, right? If you look at the situation in Haiti, the biggest name is Barbecue. Barbecue is a former police officer who becomes a gang leader. And he pretty much controls what happens or what doesn't happen in that respect. But beyond that, I'm thinking we as Belizeans or outsiders, it doesn't matter if you're from Belize, you could be from Kenya or any other country that's part of this mission, don't necessarily understand the lay of the land in Haiti. So it's almost as if I feel like we're sending them blindly into a situation where the Haitians know exactly where in Port-au-Prince or where else in the country that they have their strongholds, and we're sending people there to what? That's my concern.
I wouldn't say so. How policing and military works is that we would normally have what is called a strategic briefing. The strategic briefing is going to prepare those officers who will be going to be able to respond to the demands or the needs on the grounds. That will also give them a briefing of the landscape. It will give them a briefing of the different rivaling groups and who control what, so that when they go into Haiti, they won't be blindsided by what is actually taking place. Now, again, it's not like the external forces will be going there to work on their own. They will be working in tandem with the Haitian military and police. So they'll be on the grounds to guide them to make sure that they're going after the right people. And I do believe that if external forces are to be sent to Haiti, it is going to contribute more towards the security of Haiti because, one, they're not going to be compromised. I think one of the major issues that they're having in Haiti is that the security forces is compromised. How you can find one barbecue? But people are grill and barbecue here, right? But once the external forces know who barbecue is, believe you me, they're going to find him very, very quickly. And he'll be able to be brought to justice, right? So that should be the issue. We have to find out, they will have to find a way to make sure that they get those officers who are not compromised in Haiti to work with the external forces to be able to go after the different groups who are creating havoc in Haiti.
Back to the home front now. Back to Belize City.
We just traveled back to Belize.
So the department has done a commendable job of being able to keep the peace relatively in Belize City with all of these groups that have proven to be problematic over the years.
Yeah.
What's the strategy going forward? Because when we look at 2023 and the fact that the police department went above and beyond to try to keep things, you know, at a certain minimum, things are volatile when it comes to rival groups in Belize City. We've also seen that. What is the strategy in terms of trying your best to keep a lid on that?
Belize City is always on the edge. It is always a very volatile area. We always anticipate that there is going to be rivaling groups clashing. But what is important is how we respond, or what we do to make sure that we don't reach that boiling point and things begin to spill off or spill over. And so we continue to work as best as we can with LIU. And I must say that LIU has been doing an exceedingly good job in making sure that whenever we have these little conflicts, that they step in and do mediation and quell those issues. I myself, I get a number of issues or concerns from these gang members, and I would refer it to LIU and tell them, do interventions. When we do have large-scale interventions, then myself and Brother Noor normally coming and do it. But Ms. O'Brien, Sadan Valdez, and Mr. Dawson, Fotigongara, Sticks, they are doing as much as they can to make sure that they keep in touch with the different groups on the grounds and try to quell whatever issues they may have before it escalates. And that has been working, as well as the other social partners who are working with LIU. And again, the chair lady, Dominique Norales, is doing a good job at coordinating the efforts of the different organizations to make sure that the objectives of LIU is achieved. And so we're seeing how that is working. Then the LIU work is complemented by the police presence in the respective areas across the city to make sure that we enforce, we make sure that law and order prevails. So still doing the house searches, still doing the checkpoints, still doing the stop and searches, still focusing on vehicles that are owned and operated by gang members, just to let them know, you know, we still have our eyes on you, right? So it's not because you are a part of LIU, it means that you are now given immunity, right? The police will still come at you to make sure that you're doing what needs to be done. So the two complement each other, and that's the reason why we are where we are today.
Commissioner, I'll give you this final opportunity to speak about citizen security as it relates to the Belize Police Department on Election Day.
Again, it is important to us to make sure that we have a free and safe election come Wednesday. Belizeans typically have always maintained that they would come out, cast a vote, go home, and wait for the results. In some cases, you go back to work. And when work done, you go home and wait for the results. There are going to be some fanatics of the different political parties who, when the polls close at 6, they're going to come out and hit the streets and preempt what the result is going to be and begin to celebrate. We can't stop that from happening. But what we will do is to make sure that there is no consumption of alcohol on election day. Again, we know what alcohol can do, and we don't want people to be intoxicated and try to create problems around the polling stations or the counting stations. So that is going to be strictly enforced. Again, we ask the Belizean people to please work with us, and we ask the politicians to work with the police, because sometimes the police would get threats from politicians, right? Oh, if you don't do this, then you're going to see what is going to happen to you. If it is that we want the elections to be free and fair, then we must allow law enforcement to do the work that they must do to ensure that the security of the people is paramount. I certainly anticipate that this year is going to be no different than previous years. I can assure the Belizean people that the police will be out there in full force to make sure that every person who comes to cast a vote can do so in a very peaceful environment. So again, do not hesitate, do not be afraid to come out and cast your vote. And again, we live in a democratic nation. I've heard many people saying that they're not going to vote. If you don't vote, then you don't have a voice. Right? The only way you can have a voice and make a difference is by making sure that you cast your vote. I was listening to Love FM this morning when I was coming, and I heard a caller called in the talk show and said that he has been applying for a land title from Ministry of Natural Resources for the past 6 months. And because he has not been given his title, he's not going to vote. What does a land title have to do with your vote? right? So these are things that Belizeans need to understand.
Yeah.
You don't tie something to your vote, right? Your vote should be based on who you believe can do what's best for your community, right? And not who can give you what.
Yeah.
So again, I encourage Belizeans to please come out and let your voices be heard through your vote on election day.
Right.
Participate in a democratic process.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner, thank you so much for taking the time out of your extra busy schedule this week to stop by and share some words with our viewers.
Hey, bring me on a Monday.
Yes,
My
I know, on a
busiest day.
Monday. It's the best way. You have to start all of our weeks right, yeah? But thank you so much, and all the best. We hope that this entire week runs smoothly.
Thank you very much, and thanks likewise to your viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
I want to say thanks to all the police officers who are out there who are doing their best to make sure that Belizeans are safe.
Absolutely.
You know, I know it's a very tough job that we have, but we have to do it, and so I say thank you to them.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, we take another quick break, and when we come back, the conversation on elections continues. But this time, we'll be speaking with the correspondents. Find out more when we come back.